right. Welcome. All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Edmond Kabwe, and this is our week 14 live class. Now, we were not able to have a live class last week, and we missed some topics that were meant to be talked about in the live class. So now I would try to go back to most of these topics and refresh our memories. We may have done these topics in the class lesson, and yeah, I'm just going to help us have a little refresh of our memories on the topics. All right, so now please a minute, please. All right. So we're going to do a little review of the topics for week 13, just so we can catch up to everything that has been taught so far. But today, for week 14, we are going to look at GitHub and how we can connect our system to GitHub, to our GitHub account, how we can download GitHub, and how we can create repositories for our project. So last week, we looked at animations and transitions. So because of time, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I will just explain how this page was designed using the animations and transitions that we've learned. So here I have, so I'm going to increase this so we can see it properly. So I have here a template I've created for this illustration, and I'm just going to show us the structure of the page. So this is the CSS. So let's look at the structure of the page, how the contents were arranged. Now we have here in the body, we have the header, and in the header, we also have navigations using the navigation elements that we've learned from the previous classes. So I have 3 navigations here. I have for gallery, I have for the about page, and I have for contact. So we are not focused on these pages since we're looking at transitions. Now, we also have a hero section on the page that just gives us a welcome message. So these are common practice that we see on most web pages. So just trying to create a realistic web page similar to what we have in real pages. So we also have the page title, which tells us that we're having a gallery to showcase images. So I have created a container specific for the images or for the gallery. So this will help me organize the images properly and style them with the appropriate classes that I'm going to or I've used for them. So here I have the first class as gallery, for which this container contains all the images. So in the container for gallery, I have individual containers for each image. So when I apply the styles, they are going to take effect to the image according to the property that I've applied. So this is just trying to isolate the containers and make sure that each of them has unique or similar properties or styles. So I have my images in each of these containers. I have the class named image, and it's repeated for others. So the only difference is that I have a container with different images, but the structure remains the same. So I still have the image class repeated here, and the image here is different from this one, because this one which is an image of a mountain. Now, I also have labels to tell us what image it is. So since we're trying to create a website for image gallery, so we need labels to tell what image it is. So this label has this container is created specific for the label, and it's in the image container because I want to apply animations and transitions. Transitions specifically, I want to apply transitions to both of them. I want them to display in a specific way. So that's why I arranged them like this. So when you want to use transitions and animations, you have to make sure that your contents are well organized. So you have to plan it out. So this way, I know I want to make this label to reveal itself whenever the user hovers around this image. So I combine them in a container, but I make sure that the label has its own container inside the image container. And then the image is also inside the container. So I want this label to display in a different way. So it's going to be hidden until I hover around it, and the image as well will have its own transition effects. So everything will be styled in the image class, and then I'm going to style the container for everything in the gallery class. So this is just repeated. The gallery class holds every image container. So the image will be styled, and then the labels will be styled, and it's going to apply to all these classes or the images in this class. So let's go straight to the CSS properties, and I'm going to divide the screen so we see. So now before we look at the CSS, I will just show you how the page looks like, and I would explain how the styles are used to give us these effects. So we can see different effects. So while I explain, I'm just going to also come back to the page for us to see what was done. All right, so this is the style sheet in my document, and I am not using external style sheets. I'm using the embedded style sheets. Now for the whole body of the page, I designed it to have the font family of Arial and the defaults of sans serif if Arial, the browser does not support Arial. And then we have the margin to set as 0. So this means that the default margin for the page is reset to 0, as well as the padding. So everything starts from the edges, and also the contents starts from the edges as well. Then I have a background color of white for the whole body. And then for the header, which is this area, as you can see, I had a separate container for the header right here, which holds the navigations, and there is no other class, or since this is just a simple illustration about transitions, so I didn't spend too much time trying to design this. So what we just have here for our header is that we use the header elements to style the header area, and we used a background color and the text color of white, and also we gave it a padding of 20 px around all the content, and that's the anchor tags. And then the padding around the anchor tags, the top, side, and bottom is having the 20 px space, and also the text has been aligned to the center, as you can see here. So for the navigation elements inside the header, we are styling each anchor tag to be white as well. So though it's repeated, just to make sure it takes its effect, to have a color of white, and text decoration to none. So those default lines below the anchor tag does not display. And then the margin is set to 0 because there's no need for margin, since we've already set the header padding to be 20 px, and then the top and bottom specifically. Then for the side, we have the size to be 15px. So this just makes sure that whatever we add to this header container, it's always going to have a space between the contents. But in this case, we're not adding anything. All right, so now the hero section, which is the second part on the page here, just says welcome to my photo gallery. And we have the background color as black. The height of this container is 150px, and the display has been set to flex, so we can make sure that this image, the text is displayed right at the middle, horizontally and vertically in the center of the container. So that's why we use display flex, justify content center, align the item to be centered as well. Then the color remains white and the text aligned to center. So even if we've done this just enforces to make sure that it stays at the center. And then the size, we use the 2.5 AM font weight to be bold as well. All right, so now this style is for the footer, and we've set the background color and the text and aligned the text to the center, and then gave it a padding of 10px all around the content and positioned it to be fixed, since we want to always see it when we scroll. So not all pages must have this footer or have their footer fixed, but just depending on how you want to design your page. And then we set the width of the footer to 100%, so it doesn't have any margin around it. And then the bottom to 0. This just makes sure that there is no default space around below the footer itself. Now, let's look at the animations we have for the page. So the first content, now first, let's just, because of those joining, I will just do a little quick revision again. So we're looking at animations, which was taught last week, which was for last week lessons, but because most of us were not here or the class could not hold, and I'm trying to go back to make sure we have a quick review of these topics before we look at GitHub and creating Git repositories today. So animations or CSS animations allow you to gradually change styles over time. Like, it enhances the visual appeal of a web page. You can control the duration, the timing, and even specific styles that change by defining keyframes. So keyframes like the starting and ending of points of the animations, and applying them to any elements that has a content that can be animated. Now, transitions, on the other hand, they let you change CSS properties, the values, CSS property values smoothly. And when an element state changes, such as when it's hovered over, like we have here. So when it's hovered over or clicked, so those are times or situations where we use transitions. So the transitions are just typically triggered by events, like we have here when we hover or we are on focus or clicking. So we use the pseudo element selector for them. And then we have here for the page title, which is displayed here. Now, all we did for this page title, we used the class which we created in the heading and style it. So the first thing here is the font size, and it sets the font size of the title to twice the base size of the text. That's just what the 2 AM implies here. And the text aligned to the center. And then the animation we have here is where we are going to focus on. I'm going to expand this. screen. So just so we can see the whole screen. Now, the animation property here, it triggers the animation. That's what the animation property does. It triggers the animation, and this property is combined with several animation features, which we have here and we've seen in the class lesson. So the rotate title is the name of the keyframe that we're going to use to define this animation. And it will control the animation behavior when we use the keyframe. Then the 4 seconds we have here is the duration of the animation. So it means the entire animation will take a 4 second to complete one cycle, just like we have here. And then the linear means the speed of the animation remains constant throughout its duration, as it is. And then the infinite means that the animation repeats indefinitely. So it won't stop. It's just going to continuously animate, or whatever animation we apply, it's going to take that effect infinitely. And then the alternate means the animation plays forward once and then backward, reversing the animation after each cycle. So now the keyframe, which we've titled rotate title here, is just, we use this to define the animation for this text. That's the heading. So we've already set the animation property, and we've given the name and what we want the animation to do. And then the keyframe here is just going to define how it's going to behave. Now, here at 0%, the element starts at 0 degree, which means there's no rotation. So rotate X here is for rotation. When we use transform property, we specify how the state of the elements. So this is going to rotate the text, which we have styled here. But first, at 0%, we are saying that it should be at 0 degree. So which means there would be no rotation initially. Then at 100%, we use the transform property again, which says that we want it to complete a 360 degree rotation on the x-axis, just like the way you see it displayed here. So how the keyframe works is that at here we see at 0% the defines the timeline and of the animation. At 0%, the title would be in this normal position, like this first, and at 100%, it will complete a full 360 degree rotation. So there are several ways you can animate an element or any content, but this is one easy way to do this. Now, this is a bit different from what we've seen in the class lesson, but this is just one way of doing it as well. So understanding the basic is very important, and with that we can use to animate content easily on the web page. So you can see that the steps happen smoothly over 4 seconds, and it gives the impression of a rotating title. So let's go to the gallery, which we have below. So here we set the display to flex. So remember, we have a container called gallery, a div here called gallery, and this holds all the images. And each image is in a container of its own, and it also has the label inside the container as well. So for each container, we have an image, we have a label for each container inside the gallery container. So we are styling the gallery container. Since we have several contents or containers inside, we set the display to flex and use the flex wrap to make sure that content does not overflow, and justify content to center, just to make sure that, so I'm going to expand the page, that it's, no matter what, the content always stays at the center. then we used a gap of 20px between each content. So this just makes sure that there will be a gap of 20px for each content. So you see how we apply spaces. You can apply a space using margin or padding on the actual container or element itself, or you apply the gap on the parent container. So it also works like a margin as well. Then we used a padding of 20px for all sides as well. Now, the image containers, which holds the labels and the image itself, we've set the position to 300px and the height. So this is for the container, and this relative position is relative to the parent container, which is the gallery. And we set the height of each container to 300px and 200px for the height and 300px for the width. So you also have to consider the size of the image when you're working with images. Now, I use this specific height and width for the container because I know the size of the image already. So you don't want to put, for example, an image of a portrait and set the height to be 200px and the width 300px. So the whole image will not display properly because the height of the image you have is more than the height you have set for the container. So here we also have overflow to be hidden. So this just makes sure that the image does not overflow, and when it does, it stays hidden, but we are going to make sure that it doesn't overflow, and whatever parts that overflows is going to be hidden when we also add more styles. Now, this image container, we've selected the image container. We've selected the image using the image container. So this selector makes sure that whatever styles we apply applies to the image tag, which we have inside the image container. So you see that we use the image elements to add images, and then it's in the image container. So we're just saying we want to style the image itself, and we're enforcing these styles because we want to make sure that it doesn't affect any other class that holds an image on the page. So we want the image elements inside this image class to have a width of 100% and then the height to be 100%. So this just makes sure that the image should display the whole part of it. So we don't want the image to adjust or try to adapt to the space, but we want the whole image, everything to be 100%, but we want it fit to cover. So this will make sure that it trims out any or it adjusts the image up to make sure it covers the space that was specified in the parent container. That's for each image. And then now we are going to look at transition here. Here, the transition is saying that we want to modify the transform property of this image. And just like we have for the animation, we'll set the duration to be 0.5 seconds. So this will be a very fast transform, unlike the one we have for the animation. So you can see the different ways to do this depending on what effect you want to give. And then so the transition just defines how the change of the properties happens and smoothly when triggered. In this case, we're going to use a hover selector for that. So the ease here specifies that the speed of the transition starts slow, gets faster, and then slows down at the end, creating a smooth effect. So we're going to make sure that this, without using any of the selector like hover, when clicked, when focused, you won't see this transition property properly. So we use this hover because transitions just they take place when something is done. So we use the hover selector on the container which holds the image. So this is what this means, that the image, when we hover on the image container, we want the image to transform on a scale of 1.1. So what this means here is that this will scale the image to a 110% of its original size, creating a zoom effect. So the scale from what we learned in the class lesson defines the content by sizes. So the amount of value, the value you give for the scale determines the size of the content. So when we use transform normally, we can set the scale, but in this case, we want this transform when the size of the content is being enlarged or reduced. We want it to have a transition effect. So this gives it the whole effects of transition. So that's why we say when hover, we want the image to transform and increase its size. And then the transition here makes sure that when it's transforming, that's why we specify the transform property here, that we want it when it's transforming, we want it to use 0.5 seconds to transform the value we've given at ease. So that's why when we hover around it, you see it zooms in and it zooms out, it zooms in. So the scale here now, it's transformed to 1.1, and when I take out the mouse, it goes back to the original state. Now for the label, which we have inside the image container here, we've set the position to be absolute, and this is absolute to the image container, and we set the spaces around it to remove the default spaces around it, the bottom, the left, so it doesn't have any space or default space around it. We want it to the label container itself. So remember, this label is the container we created inside the image container along with the image itself. So that's why we're able to make it display like this. But for us to make it hide when we hover out, we set the transform and transition as well. So let's look at how this was done. Now we've fixed the spaces around it. We removed the default spaces and set the width to be 100%. That's why you see the container itself from starting to the ending of the image container. And the background, now we've given it a transparent background, a dark transparent background using the RGB color, and make sure that the text is white and align the text to center, and as well a padding from the top, which we see here, the space between the text and the margin of the container. We set the space to be 5px and none for the sides because it's no longer necessary since we set the text to align to the center. And then we we can look at the transform and transition we have here. So first we want it to translate. So when we use the transform property directly like this, it takes the effect. So you can always refer back to the class lessons to remember how these properties work. So the transform here, we used the value here is translate, and we want it to translate on the y-axis. So it's just up down, and we want it to be 100%. So what this is doing here is that the label is initially positioned off the screen by 100% of its height, hiding it below the image. So just because it translates y, it's on the y-axis and it translates 100%, so below the image. So it makes it hidden, and then the transition property here specifying the transform. So this transition is for when we hover. So what we're doing now is that since we are going to have a transform property, we are trying to transition the transform property, giving it the same values or characters that we've said before in the previous one. So this just repeats the same to make sure that when it transforms at 0.5 seconds. So it makes this really quick and smooth. So this ease just makes it smooth. And when we hover on the image, so also take note of how we select these elements. So this is that we want the same image container to have the hover effect, but we also specifying that this label is transformed. So this just enforces everything on the label. And when we transform and we use the translate, so remember we translate initially to 100%, so it makes it hidden. And then now when we hover, we want it to translate at 0. So this just makes sure that it displays back to the initial position it's meant to be. So that's all we have for transitions. So let's quickly look. But before we go, if there's any questions you like to ask, because of time, we just want to quickly look at GitHub and see how much we can cover for today. All right, so if there are no questions, then we move to GitHub. Now, for GitHub, GitHub is a version control source that we use for several purposes. We use it to collaborate. We use it to store. You can look at it as a way of saving your files for others to either collaborate or for you to always fall back to maybe a project you have completed, and you always want to have somewhere to keep it for people to see or collaborate. So that there are just several useful things we can do with GitHub. Now, GitHub, for you to be able to use GitHub, you have to connect GitHub to your system. Now, for you to use or connect, we need the GitHub command line, which is the git bash. So you can refer to the lesson resources for this weekend. You see how we can install GitHub. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. When you look at the class lesson resources, you see how the process to install GitHub on your system. That's git bash, sorry. Now, I will go to my git bash, and assuming we have created accounts on GitHub, assuming we've created our accounts on GitHub and we've downloaded the git bash, all we have to do is come to our git bash and connect the accounts we've created on GitHub to our git bash or to our system using the git bash. Now, there are several command lines, and we also looked at them in the class lesson. So we're just going to use the ones we need for this connection. Now, first of all, we want to make sure that we have the right account connected to our system. So you would specify using git config double hyphen and global, and then specify your username. So if your username you have saved is, for example, user.name. So this just makes sure that your username is connected. And then after connecting, so I have mine connected already, so there won't be any need for me to reconnect it again. And after connecting your username, you're also going to connect with your email. So you use user.the_name, your email, and that's after connecting with your username. So when you put in your email and you just press the enter key, then you have successfully connected them both. Then after that, we create a SSH key, which we use to connect to GitHub. So to create the key, we use the SSH keygen -t. Now this just specifies the type of encryption or the type of key. That's different keys. So we use RSA and hyphen in the uppercase C. This is for comments. So here you're going to give in the pair of quotes your email. And you enter. So once you click enter, a file which to save. So I'm just going to, let me just do this so we see it very well. So assuming now I have my system already connected, but assuming I want to create a new key for this system, a new key for connection. So I will just use the proper email. Now you can see that it's trying to generate the key, but it's asking me what file I want to save the key in. So by default, you have it saved in the .ssh folder. It's going to create this folder in your system, your root directory, and then name the file ID_RSA. So like I said, RSA is the type of the key or the encryption. So if we specify another type of encryption here, we're going to use that name as well here. Then the name of the file is what it's asking here. But if you don't want to name the file, you could just press the enter key, and it's going to since I already have this existing, so it tells me that I already have this key existing, but I don't want to overwrite, so I have to create another key here. So I'll click enter again, and let's try to generate a key. And then here I'm going to call this key or test key. So I am creating a new key and I'm calling it test key. And then it's going to ask for a passphrase. And this is recommended for security purpose as well. So if you don't want to give a passphrase or a password, you can as well click enter, and it will ask you to confirm that you don't need a password. You click enter again, and then it creates the key. So now my key has been created. In order for us to copy this key and send to use it on GitHub to connect to our GitHub account, now that several commands. So let's look at where this key is created first before we try to copy it. So we use the pwd to check the directory. So this means present working directory. We've seen the different commands in the class lesson. So I'm using this pwd to check my current directory, and then it tells me I'm in my Lenovo, that's my users directory. So I want to also check if the key I have created, which is the test key, is in this directory. So here I'm just going to use the ls to list out all the files that I have, files and folders I have on this current working directory. So you can do these are just steps I'm taking to be sure first which directory I'm on, and then I want to see the list of files. So as you can see here, I have several folders, but I don't have the key in any of this. I don't have the key in this directory here. So this alone tells me that okay, that I don't have the key here, so I can't reveal the key from this directory. So I have to change my directory to the directory. So first, I want to cd to my root directory. And I want to check in my root directory. So I've confirmed that I'm in my root directory. And I also have, okay, so I have my files here. So I was looking at the folders. So I also have the file, the key I've created here in my directory. So I have the test key and I have the test key.pub. So if you want to, let's say you use the default, by default, when you use default, it's going to take you up, create the .ssh folder. So you need to change directory into the SSH folder before you can be able to reveal your key. So yeah, I want to get the key from this folder I'm currently on, or this directory I'm currently on. So I use the path and then the name of the key. So I want to reveal the test key dot pub. So it's a public key. So since I don't have a premium account on GitHub, so all my keys, everything I'll be doing here will be public. So the test key.pub should reveal our key. So now this is the key you're going to copy, the SSH key you're going to copy. You can use the left click on your mouse to copy, or you just use your Ctrl+C. So once we get our key, we can go to GitHub. So this is my GitHub, and you want to, you can go to your settings and then look for SSH and GPG keys. Then you come here and you can add your key. So I already have a key here, which I'm currently using, so there won't be any need to add this, but all you have to do is just click new SSH key, the name of your key. My key here is test key, and I just paste my key and add the key to my GitHub. So this is asking me to authenticate. So depending on the authentication you have set for your account, there are several different types of authentications you can use for your accounts. So I am going to approve with the authentication app I have connected with my account. So now my key has been added successfully. So let's try to create or push these files that we have, since we've created a page here and we want to push this file directly to our GitHub account. So I hope we're able to do this with a little time. So here on my Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio Code has an integrated terminal that you can use. So if you want to use your Git bash, you can use your Git bash to create a repository or push files to your repository. But I want to use the PowerShell, which we have in Visual Studio Code. So this makes everything done in one space. It makes it easy for me to adjust stuff and see changes as it applies. So when you want to create a repository, first thing you want to do is in your terminal, you always want to check your directory. Try to make sure that you're in the right directory, because you don't want to create a repository in the wrong directory. You will not be able to push your files to that directory. So in the class lesson, we've seen how to create directories if you don't have a directory. But in this case, I already have a directory. I have this week 13 here as my folder, work projects folder for my directory. So if you're not on your directory in this part, you can always try to make sure that you change your directory. So let's say I'm in my so let's come out from this directory. We use the double dots and / and this will take me to the front end, and double dots again, and it takes me to the live classes folder. So now, if you also want to be sure, you can still use the pwd, and it tells you the paths where you are currently on. So I would increase the skin. All right, now you want to make sure you're in the right directory. So I'll cd to so I'll cd now into the front end folder, which I have my week 13. I have to make sure this is the right folder. The name, so you have to take notes of the folder. And here I have it as week 13. Okay, so this is another problem that we're also going to have. So while naming your folders or files, you always want to try to avoid spaces between the names or the text. So I would close this terminal so we don't spend time trying to change the directory. So now, let's see if I'm still in this directory. So I'm back to my week 13 directory, but it didn't work because I have a space between the text. So this is why I use Visual Studio Code integrated PowerShell terminal, so that I don't go through much stress. But it's proper that you have your files or folders named without spaces. So you use underscores or hyphens like you see here for the live class. All right, so now we want to make sure that this folder is a repository. We want to initialize a repository in this folder. So what we're going to do here, okay, just so we see that we still have our code here. So we want to initialize this folder. What we do is we use the git init command and click enter. So this initialized the week 13 folder, which is my project folder, as a git repository. So currently I have not pushed what I have here. So it says that this is empty git repository. Now for us to make sure that we make this proper, we are going to create the repository. So we want to create a repository from our GitHub. So I'll go back to my home. And sorry, please, I'm going to need a minute to confirm something before. All right, so we're going to stop this class now because of time. Well, we can create these repositories and in two ways. We can either create from the terminal here. We can create one from the GitHub website and connect it from the terminal, or we can create one that doesn't have any content and clone it. So this was done in the class lesson, but if you have any challenges trying to create your own repositories, please feel free to reach out to any of the admin on the WhatsApp group. So because of time, we're going to end this here, and I wish you all success in your assignments.